Baro Ki'Teer has been quite an interesting character indeed, on its own, without all the new stuff that has happened, but he's been doing something strange recently. You might have heard the words, "We end as we began," and those were the words spoken by Albrecht Intradi, but now it has been spoken by somebody else as well, and that person is Baro Ki'Teer. How can I put this? Well, he's been talking backwards. Yeah, you heard me right, backwards, but it doesn't stop there. What he's saying actually has some meaning. It has been Requiem poems, and specifically all the poems that I'm gonna mention now. So the one poem is, "From brooding gulfs are we beheld by that which bears no name." That is from the Requiem Lok. Then we have, "Its heralds are the stars it fells, the sky and earth aflame," from Zata. The next one is, "Carrion hordes troll their profane accord with eldritch plans." That's from Netra. And then lastly we have, "To cosmic forms from tangent planes we end as we began." Now obviously the "end as we began" type situation is something that you might have heard from Albrecht Intrati himself, and so I can't help but wonder, does this have something to do with the Devil's Triad and the old piece update that's releasing, well, probably in a month, or maybe even like closer than that? I don't know, I think it's maybe in November, which is like now. At the end of the day, there are some foreboding, and there's also a different reason why Baro Ki'Teer might be saying the things that he's saying. Recently, Baro Ki'Teer has been, well, red, and that is duly because of Halloween and kind of getting the spooky vibes going, but also it might be something entirely different. In typical DE fashion, they have a tendency to hide lore and bits of the story within normal stuff that happens in the game. Let's actually recap this. So Baro Ki'Teer, he is a trader that traverses the void, and has been doing so for a long time, right? We know this. Well, if you didn't, you know that now. Because he has been traversing the void, has made a deal with Wally. So when Baro Ki'Teer made the deal with Wally, he essentially made it so that all the different Baro Ki'Teers of all the different timelines or universes, or whatever measuring system you want to use for eternalism in Warframe, he asked that all the Baro Ki'Teers get fused into one. All of them kind of die off, right? So there's only one Baro Ki'Teer, and the reasoning behind that was he doesn't want any competition. That's as simple as that. He's a merchant, he wants to make the most possible profit that he can, and to do that, there can only be one him. Yes, that is literally the case. He doesn't want competition, and fair enough so. He is the Baro Ki'Teer, the merchant, the trader of void items and other stuff in between. Stuff that you can't find essentially anywhere else, right? So why would he want even more competition now? There are some theories and speculations as to why he suddenly looks different, why he looks all gloomy, and it's not only because of Halloween or the fact that Halloween was just around the corner. It actually is much more sinister than that. This is where the theories start to kick in. One theory suggested that Baro Ki'Teer is now red and kind of gloomy and kind of weird and Wally-esque because it's not the Baro Ki'Teer that we know. Rather, it is the Baro Ki'Teer that has died off or kind of got taken away by the indifference. This Baro Ki'Teer essentially had a new lease on life for that split moment, maybe a day or two or a week or whatever, how long he is there, right? And I don't know about you guys, but I'll be pretty gloomy myself if I knew that I only had limited time to do what I want to do, to live my dream, and to be on this material plane. So I guess the question then is, what do you think about the Baro Ki'Teer that we see right now? Is it the same one, just dressed differently and acting a little bit Wally-esque, as they might say, or is there something else going on? And that brings me to my next piece of information here. Let me tell you a story about Baro Ki'Teer, who he is, where he came from, and why he is as important as he is. Stick around and subscribe, by the way, if you haven't done so already. I do lore videos and stories and stuff here all the time, so stick around, stay tuned, and also like the video, by the way. 100 likes minimum that I want on this video. Let's jump into it. The man who we now know as Baro Ki'Teer was once a little boy that lived on Mars, where his people told famous stories about the desert guardian Inaros that protected their homeland and their ancestors, but soon afterwards the Grineer came. They descended like locusts upon Mars and upon their village and essentially burned it to glass. So the last words that Baro remembers from his mother is that he should run. And that he did. He of course was the sole survivor of his entire village, and that kind of became his identity. Years passed and he became a scavenger, realizing that sentiment is a luxury and that you should do what you have to survive. Now he honed his skills. He became the scavenger, traversing the void even to find artifacts that no one knew where he could get them. Now, it is very important to realize that he traversed the void, because there's stuff later on that he reveals that essentially it breaks our understanding of what can happen in Warframe. Maybe some of you guys know this, but maybe not. The thing is, he became a seeker of relics, a scavenger drawn to what others feared, the ruins of the Orokin Empire and the silent chambers of the void. Where others found madness, Baro was the only one that could find profit. He capitalized on that and did so quite successfully. And at some unknown point in the future, he then became known as the Void Trader. Baro Ki'Teer claimed to walk where time folds in upon itself, the void, where he took Orokin treasures and very rare items and brought that back to us, which is very important for a little bit later in the story, so stick around and stay tuned. The thing is, whether he truly braved the void or just trafficked its remnants, no one could actually say, but what everybody knew as a matter of fact was that Baro Ki'Teer was undeniably resourceful and that he always delivered. But then when the system turned to war again, Baro came back, but under a new name. During Operation Cryotic Front, he contacted the Tenno through hidden channels, offering equipment in exchange for cryotic. He called himself the Mystery Associate, a benefactor whose interest, while mercenary at the best, it's still aligned with the Tennos. Shortly thereafter, of course, in Operation Gatecrash, he resurfaced again. This time he traded in critical data that led to the rediscovery of the Archwing technology. Even though his motives was unknown at best, he still was pretty useful. And by the time that all the fighting kind of subsided, Baro Ki'Teer was no longer a rumor. He was a merchant force that came along every fortnight, which it's 2 weeks, 14 days, for those of you who might not know what a fortnight is. He's always unannounced, yet expected. Now on every fortnight, Tenno all around gather in the relays around the planet, kind of waiting like pilgrims to a prophet. Now what is extremely interesting is the fact that he only sells his wares for ducats and credits. And his reasoning behind this is, and I quote, "The ducats," he explained, "were the only currency truly valued and therefore the only currency worthy." What does that actually mean? Why does he need ducats this bad? The Orokin Empire doesn't exist anymore, so why would he use the only currency really valuable to the Orokin Empire in today's time? Well, I think the trick lies in the fact that he doesn't. Remember, he traverses the void, a place where time kind of folds in upon itself, right? What if he uses the void the same way that Albrecht Intrati travels to 1999 and travels to the new system, which I'm guessing is also kind of 1999, where he's gonna do the old Devil's Triad thing? Apart from that, I think that Baro Ki'Teer traverses the void, goes back in time to the Orokin Empire where that was still, well, a thing, and he uses the ducats that he gets now to trade in wares that was once not rare, but is now. Things that you might not be able to find anyplace else, or maybe haven't for a long time, but he has, well, access to it. The real question then lies in if he can traverse the void. If he has made a deal with the Indifferents, what is Wally getting out of this? Remember, Baro once said, and I quote, "There can be only one Baro Ki'Teer. The notion that there could be multiple Baro Ki'Teers, it's distasteful, and yet the internalism cult insists. Very well, let us say I am now singular." So the Indifferents took out all the rest of the Baro Ki'Teers, but what is he giving in return? Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think, and do you have any other information regarding Baro Ki'Teer, the famous void trader, the mysterious figure that brings Orokin treasures and prizes from a time unbeknownst to man. I would love to know what you guys think, and with that being said, if you enjoyed this little bit of like a lore or not in depth but like a story video, let me know. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time, Tenno.